2, 3, 4. Good morning. This is Shades of Green radio show on KDWN 720 AM and 101.5 FM, simulcast right here in the Valley of Sun and Sin. Only FM talk radio. So this morning we have Jennifer Taylor from New Economy West Consulting, and she is also a Green Alliance board member and scribe with Green Alliance. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Paul.
And of course, our now famous co-host, the best co-host in the building, Stan Hanold.
Thank you.
Good morning, Stan. So today we're talking legislative issues, and as we're spooling up to the show today, we're talking about how only the geeks in this room used to talk about energy issues when it comes to legislation, and now it has become kind of a big issue, and there are lots of energy issues coming up in legislation with question 3 and question 6, and there'll be other questions, I'm sure, about these questions. So that's why we're here. So today we're going to start and have Jennifer tell us a little bit about herself and her background and why she thinks she's so green and her interest in this. Good morning, Jennifer.
Good morning, Paul. I've always been interested in sustainability, and I've always been interested in all things green. I was a board member for another conservation organization for a long time. And then I was the executive director for an organization called Clean Energy Project, and that's really where I started to learn about renewable energy and all these sort of very technical issues. I'm also a lawyer, so I get to dig into legislation and really understand what some of the policies mean and what the policy implications are. I was a member of the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice. I was a member of one of the working groups for the Governor's New Energy Industry Task Force. And I spent a lot of time in 2017 working on the 11 bills that were passed out of the legislature related to energy and to advanced technologies and clean technologies and advanced energy issues and disruptive technologies that impact our energy world.
So let's start there. In 2017, several bills were passed that were good things that overturned some things that happened in 2015. Bring us up to speed on that.
So there were 11 bills passed, 2 were vetoed by the governor, and those were specifically the RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard Bill, which was AB 206, which would have increased our renewable portfolio standard to a 40% by 2030 as opposed to a 25% by 2025. The other bill that was vetoed was Community Solar Bill, that was Senate Bill 392, and we'll talk about those 2 issues in regards to what's coming up. Bills that came out of the session in 2017 included things related to storage, integrating our distributed energy resources into long-term planning, a couple bills on energy efficiency, bills related to renewable incentives, including electric vehicles. But the big one I think that you're wanting me to get to is AB 405, which was the rooftop solar bill. And I think that the entire rooftop solar issue is what really catapulted energy and clean energy and these disruptive technologies and how we get our energy to sort of a public zeitgeist where it was just in the norm and in the discussion of everyday folks as opposed to just wonks.
And just for there was real world money involved. People were looking at rooftop solar to save them money in the long term and be good for their environment, and then all of a sudden there were roadblocks and
so we had a lot of people buying solar for their homes, and we were smiling, all of us geeks in this room were smiling because renewable was starting to grow some legs underneath it.
Right.
And before 2015 legislation, Nevada was the #1 renewable energy employer in the United States.
Per capita,
And then 2015, what happened?
2015, a bill was passed, the lone energy bill in that session, by the way, that there was a cap on rooftop, in the installations of rooftop solar. It was like a percentage of the entire load. They switched that to a megawatt cap, and then they sent it to the Public Utility Commission for the Public Utility Commission to determine what was an appropriate tariff or what was the appropriate payback for folks who had rooftops sending energy into the grid. The sort of 2 big issues that came out of that really caused this turmoil and kerfuffle in the industry was, number one, the Public Utility Commission took everybody that had rooftop, not the folks that had installed rooftop up to the date of their ruling. You know, like they didn't grandfather in. So that was one of the biggest issues, because there were 20,000 or something rooftops and interconnections that were expecting to have a certain payback based on their interconnection agreement with NV Energy.
For like 20 years, like a power purchase agreement.
It was a power, well, it wasn't, that's only for the lease model, Stan.
I
For the
see.
people who purchased, it was just a straight interconnection. So there were two models of rooftop. There was number one, you outright purchase it, and then that means that you have a direct agreement with the utility to give them your energy, you get credits back from the utility. The other model, which is what really launched a huge number of interconnections and a huge number of homes with rooftop on it, was the lease model. That was something that was done really through Solar City, Sunrun, Vivint, some of those big national companies. And
So that's where people are paying a lease over the
Correct.
years, maybe a 25-year agreement, instead of purchasing the units up front and
Right.
owning them.
But more importantly, what it did was, the reason that they were getting those leases is that they no longer had an agreement for, that they no longer were buying their power essentially from the utility. They were in a power purchase agreement, as Stan referenced, directly with Sunrun or Solar City or whoever. So that Solar City, I will just use them because they were the biggest corporation in this model of market. But we'll get to that after the break, because it is important to understand how all of this happened.
Yeah, it's a little bit confusing, but we're going to sort that all out
Right.
when we come back.
Right.
Shades of Green on KDWN. We'll be right back.